on your phone. The symbol in your app store will look something like this. First thing you do is you create your action ID by clicking on this button in the red box here. And then you're prompted to enter in information such as your email address, password, name, phone number, etc. Once you've done all that, at the bottom here, you click Create Account. And then at that point, you're going to most likely see like an Edit Profile page. And on that page, you'll see two-factor authentication. It'll look like this. Excuse me, you just want to make sure that two-factor authentication is set to on. Okay. So click Edit Profile at the bottom of the screen, and then you're going to see something that looks like this, where you see enter a turf number, enter a list number. You click on that, and then you'll get to this screen where you can actually enter the list number. And I'll use that same list number again, kind of just if you guys want to play around while we're going through this. And Chrissy, maybe you can put it in the chat again. So, okay, so the first 8 numbers, 3362 4204, and then in the second box, you want to put 62550. Again, 3362 4204 62550.
Mike, I'm sorry, say it again. I messed up. 3362
4204 62550.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. And so then after you've entered the list number, you hit this orange bar download list. And as I mentioned before, if we've got a lot of people still on the call that are entering this same number, you know, you might see messages that are a little unique. We normally only have, I mean, usually 2 at most in a turf at the same time. But, okay, so after that, you will see the household view. This is the default view. This is what automatically comes up after you enter the turf list number, and it shows streets alphabetically by street number. Okay. So now you're ready to start lit sticking, and the way we mark each house once we've given it a lit stick, we mark it not home. And I mean, we can do this because we're not talking to anybody. We're not capturing all sorts of data about, you know, who they're going to vote for and what are their big issues. We're just sticking and going. So in order for us to track it in the system, the quickest way is just to mark it not home. Okay. And there's a shortcut for that. I'm going to go through the shortcut for the iPhone first. The Android is just a little different. What you're seeing here is the iPhone. So once you, in this case, if you just lit sticked 10304 Andover, you start on the left side of that address with your thumb and then just slide it across to the right, and you'll see an orange bar that will then show NH for not home. You keep sliding and that NH will turn to a check mark. At that point, you can let go, and then you'll see the dot for that house turn orange. And that's it. You're done at that point. You have marked everything in that house as not home. And these dots represent the number of voters in the household. So if there are 3 people and you've marked it not home, you're going to see 3 orange dots. Okay. For the Android, again, just slightly different. You just simply press and hold your finger over the address until a drop-down menu appears. You select not home from the drop-down and remove your finger from the screen, and that should do it. Okay, so now some kind of helpful tips and such on lit sticking. Try sticking the lit on glass, ideally. Storm doors work great. A lot of doors have glass panes on or near them. The adhesive just works best on glass. It also works pretty well on metal, but I would really try to avoid sticking it on a wood or other painted surface. The adhesive just does not work as well with this, especially if like it's humid outside. So in that case, it's really a good idea to carry some tape along with you. If your only option is like a big stained wooden door, then you can just cut off a little piece of painter's tape, masking tape, scotch tape, all that works fine. And then just use that to make sure it will stay stuck. You can also put the lit stick on the outside of the mailbox as a last resort, preferably at the bottom. The main thing is just never put it inside the mailbox. That is against federal law. And then worst case is you can either kind of stuff the lit in the door, like in the crevice, or you can just kind of leave it on the ground sticking out of the doormat. You'll see once you get into the lit sticking, you get pretty creative on where you leave the lit stick. Now, if your list in MiniVan directs you to a house with a Republican sign, we do not want to leave a lit stick. And we also want to click on that address and mark each voter there as a Republican. And I'll get to that the details of that a little bit later in the appendix. If you happen to see a Democrat sign at a house that's not on your list, go ahead and leave them a lit stick, as long as you feel like you have a few extras to handle that. Okay, very important. In order for the data to be transmitted, you must what's called sync the turf. And you can do this while you're walking, but the only requirement is that you do it once the turf is completed. And the way to do it, so again, this is your household view, and you can see, in this example, we, marked a few houses not home. So we might want to sync at this point. You do that by touching these two arrows in a circular pattern, and you do that. It'll take a few seconds, and then you should see a check mark, and it will tell you under MiniVan, it'll say last synced just now. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're out in the field sticking lit, sometimes for whatever reason you'll get a data offline message. That's pretty common. I know it looks intimidating or worrisome, but not to worry. Once you're back on Wi-Fi, you really should not encounter that issue. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned before, when you enter your turf list number, and then the default view that comes up is going to be household, which shows the addresses alphabetically. You have another option. You can click on the menu icon, which is in the upper left-hand corner, these three lines, and that will take you to this screen right here where you see many different options. You can click on map, which is here in the red box, and then you'll see something that looks like this. Now, initially, when that map comes up, you may only see one or two circles with random numbers in them that are usually pretty large, 20 or more. Just keep zooming in on the map, and you'll notice that this one or two circles will continue to multiply into many circles. And once you've zoomed down all the way, then each one of those circles will represent an individual household. And you'll see the numbers as they appear like here. And at that point, those numbers represent the number of voters we're targeting in each household, okay? Some people like this view because, they just like the visual of a map. Just a couple things to caution you on. The circles that indicate the address you want to hit aren't always in exactly the best place. You may see it on the map, but then you're going down the street and the actual address is maybe 3 or 4 doors down. So it's not 100% precise. And also when you're using the map view, you don't have that shortcut to mark people not home. You have to go through and it's just many more touches because you're going to each voter and multiple screens to mark them not home and going back and back again. So we really recommend that household view over the map. You can do, let's see, on the main menu, you can do other things like you'll see the percentage of the turf completed. And let's see what else on here. Let me just hang on just a second, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, okay, I think at this point it's a good thing to mention that it's also very important to keep in mind you must finish one turf in MiniVan before you can load a second. because once you've loaded a second one, you've lost everything that you've done in that first turf. So sometimes you might think, well, I'm going to do about half of this first turf, and then I want to move on to turf 2, and I'll come back to turf 1. You can't really do that, because once you come back to turf 1, it's just going to be totally blank, like you haven't done anything. So finish an entire turf, sync it, and then when you're ready, you just click on download a new list right here. Okay, so that kind of takes us through the process. Now, before you can load MiniVan a second time, it's gonna want you to confirm your email address, and you'll get an email with a confirm link. You just click on that link, and that's pretty much it. And that should be a one-time deal. But going forward, in the future, whenever you log into MiniVan, you need to select Login with Action ID, and it's going to ask you to enter your email address and your password. Click Login, and then you're going to be prompted to enter a 6-digit verification code, which should automatically be sent to you via text. You enter in that code, you click Verify, and you're good to go. You're ready to enter in your turf list number, or resume with where you left off last time. So, okay, now a couple things in the appendix. As I mentioned before, if we come across a Republican that's on the list, or lit stick list, we want to mark them in MiniVan so that TDP can capture that data and make sure the data is as clean as possible. So the way we do that, let's say you arrive at this address, 9531 Hilldale, and it's loaded with Republican signs. You click on the address, and then you're going to see a screen with all the voters residing at that location. Now you're going to need to mark each voter as a Republican. So in this example, I just started with Karen here. So I clicked on Karen, and then you'll see this screen. You're going to go down to Strong Republican and tap in the box, which will put a check mark in that box. Like right, and that's where it kind of confirms right here. And then you click back, and you'll get that list of voters at that address again, but you'll see a blue check mark next to Karen. So you know you've done Karen, and then you do the same thing for Catherine and Robert. And then once you've marked all voters, then you just keep clicking back until you return to that household view, and you can move on with your lit sticking. Occasionally, you're going to want to identify a house as inaccessible or hostile. So let's see. The first example here, a house that's inaccessible. It may be that there's a security gate, you can't get near it, or there's a no trespassing sign. In this case, the same thing. You tap on the address, and you'll see the list of voters registered there. In this example, there's only one voter, Thomas. So you click on Thomas's name, and then you click on this, I couldn't reach this contact. So you do that, and the next screen, it comes up, will give you different options. You would click inaccessible, and then click back until you get back to this screen. And now in front of Thomas, you'll see IN here, which identifies Thomas as being inaccessible. But again, you want to do that for each voter in that household. So we know the entire house is inaccessible. It's fairly rare, but you might come across someone who's kind of hostile and just doesn't want anything to do with, our liberal propaganda or what have you. Those you want to mark as do not walk. So whenever we do future lit sticks, they're not going to be included, and no one else will have to deal with them. To do that, it's really the same way, but instead of inaccessible, you just check do not mark. I'm sorry, do not walk right here. And yeah, and that's it. Lastly, and I just added this, this came up in our call on Monday. So occasionally you'll have a partner you're working with on a turf, and that's fine. Multiple people can enter in the same turf list number. But as you're working the turf, generally you want to sync as often as you can, because that will tell you then you'll be able to see the progress that your partner's making. So for example, right here, you can see that the ones with the orange dots, I mean, they've received lit stick. This one here, 8317, this is one that I did, okay? But these other ones around it that also are marked orange, that have this little team icon, those are ones that my partner or team member hit. So if you're syncing fairly often, then you can keep track of what your partner's doing, so you're not, you know, duplicating effort, hit the same house twice, what have you. And you know, that works really well. But again, just as I mentioned, sometimes you have a challenge syncing while you're out in the field. You'll get that data offline message. You know, if that happens, I mean, it's unfortunate. It seems like that's relatively rare. But again, you'll be able to sync once you get back on Wi-Fi. You just may not be able to see the progress of your partner in real time. So, and I believe that is it.
Okay, you guys that are left, anybody have any questions? I know that there's one from Shelton. We're working. Mary, can you look at that one real quick? And any other questions, or do you guys feel okay about it? Thumbs up. All right, great. If you guys feel good and don't have any questions, then you can drop off. If anybody else has a question that they want to ask, we can put it in the chat, or we can take some questions as people get off mute. I think people are dropping off.